Experience Life, what's up? Good to see you today. Want to welcome those of you watching at church online at our downtown campus or Amarillo campus. We're pumped that you're with us right now as well. Hey, want to remind you, next weekend is Servolution. Don't want to forget that. In case you're wondering what Servolution is, it is a serving or service revolution that Experience Life is taking part in. Churches across our nation are taking part in to be churches that are blessing their cities in Jesus' name. And so we're going to be a part of that next week here in Lubbock. We'll be canceling our services on Saturday and Sunday so that we can go out and be the church. In Amarillo, you guys will have projects on Friday and Saturday, so you'll still have services on Sunday. But we're just going to go out, be a blessing to the city in Jesus' name. Want to challenge you, if you haven't signed up for a project, stop by the Servolution table in the foyer of your campus, or you can just show up next week and we will get you plugged into a project. Just show up at any one of our campuses and we will get you plugged in. But I don't know about you, you guys pumped for Servolution next week? I am too. It's going to be awesome. Today, though, we're finishing our Man in the Mirror series, and we've been walking through the first chapter of the book of James and looking at what James had to say to the believers who were in Jerusalem, but were scattered out all over Judea and Samaria, all across their region because of a persecution that broke out in Jerusalem. And James is writing to them while they're scattered out all over that region, encouraging them, challenging them to remain faithful to Jesus in light of the persecution and the trials they were going through, and encouraging them to be doers of the word. And so last week, we looked at the verses that said, don't just listen to the word and deceive yourselves, do what it says. And if you weren't here last weekend, you definitely want to go online, experiencelifenow.com, and catch that message. It was powerful. It is just so important to the vision and philosophy of Experience Life and where we're going and the direction that we're headed. So definitely want to go online and check that out if you didn't. But basically what we've been saying, or what we said last week, is that if you're not experiencing God's word, like if you're not living out, obeying what you hear, what you read, if you're not doing that, then you're deceiving yourself into thinking that you're growing spiritually. Like you hear us talk about next steps, like getting baptized, volunteering or serving, giving, being a part of a life house. And you're like, yeah, no, that's just not for me. Like, I don't really want to do the whole baptism thing, or, you know, the money that I have, that's really just all mine, and I kind of want to do with it what I want with it. You know, I really don't want to serve, volunteer, life house. You know, those people are probably strange and weird. Like, I don't want to get involved in that. And so you don't, like, obey simple truths from God's word, which our next steps are based on. You say, you know, no, that's not really for me. You're disobeying God's word, and you're not growing spiritually if you say no to action steps that are going to help you be a doer. And that's why we focus on next steps at Experience Life. That's why we have a next steps process, is to help you become a doer of the word. They're action steps, so that you're not just gaining more and more knowledge, so that you just don't keep learning and listening and hearing like the verses we talked about last week. You're actually becoming a doer of the word. So we focus on steps, not programs. Steps to help you become a doer, not programs that just feed you more information and knowledge that we're not going to live out. And for some reason in America today, we've begun to think that the more that we know, the deeper that we're growing in our relationship with Jesus. And James is saying that that's not the case. In fact, if you think that or live like that, you're deceiving yourself. You're deceiving yourself into thinking you're growing spiritually when you're really not, because you're not obeying simple truth from God's word. And James is going to show us a few other ways that we tend to do that today in the verses that we're going to look at. James chapter 1, if you have a Bible, James chapter 1, we're going to be looking at verse 26 and 27. And if you have one of our blue Bibles, we're in page 290 on the blue Bibles. And if you don't have a Bible, if it's not in a translation you understand very well, feel free to pick one up on your way out. It's on us. It's free. Grab it. We want you to have a Bible and a translation you understand very well. At all of our campuses, it's free. Take one if you don't have one. The verses will also be on the screen, so feel free to follow along with us as we look. James 1, verse 26 and 27. Let's get going. James says, if you claim to be religious but don't control your tongue, you're fooling yourself. And your religion is worthless. Pure and genuine religion in the sight of God the Father means caring for orphans and widows in their distress and refusing to let the world corrupt you. So James is saying, listen, you can claim to be religious all day long. Like you can claim to be someone who goes to church week in, week out. You know, I'm an E-lifer. I go to Experience Life. I'm there every week. You know, I don't miss a service. You can claim to be religious. Like you can claim to be someone who's going through the religious activity, the religious routine. But James still says, but you can still have a worthless and fake religion. It can still be worthless and fake. In fact, God tells the Israelites the same thing in Isaiah chapter 1. They're bringing all these burnt offerings and sacrifices, and they're going through the routines and the rituals and their services and their ceremonies. They're going through all these things. And God literally tells the Israelites in Isaiah chapter 1, what makes you think I want all this? He tells them, I want no more of your meetings. Like it's pointless for you to keep meeting together because you're not doing what I've told you to do. And he tells them this too. It's probably the strongest thing he says in Isaiah chapter 1. He tells the Israelites, when you pray, I will not listen. See, because they were neglecting to do the things that God told them to do. They kept meeting together. They kept going through their ceremonies, their routines, their sacrifices, their rituals. But God says, listen, it's pointless for you to keep meeting together. It's pointless for you to do this week in and week out if you're not going to listen and do the things that I've told you to do. If you're not going to be a doer of the word, he says it's pointless. Your routine, your attendance, it's fake because you're not doing what I've told you to do. They were neglecting the things that God told them to do, like being a light to the nations, telling other nations about who God is, this God that they worship, this God that they follow. They were neglecting the poor, the orphans, the widows, those who are in distress, it says in Isaiah chapter 1. And so God tells them, listen, even when you pray, I'm not going to listen. What's the point of you coming together and meeting together? You're not doing what I've told you to do. And James is saying the same thing can be true for Christians today. We can go through routine, we can go through the ritual, but if we're not listening and doing, if we don't hear and then do and live it out, it's fake, it's meaningless, it's worthless. I've got a Mickey Mantle signed baseball right here. It's mine, you can't have it. I got this in 7th grade for Christmas. And the reason why I got this baseball, and in case you don't know who Mickey Mantle is, he's probably one of the best all-around baseball players to ever play the game. Okay, I don't want to hear about, A-Rod or Pujols or any of those jokers, okay? It's Mickey Mantle, all right? Now, the reason why I've got a Mickey Mantle baseball is because my family, my mom and her brothers grew up with the Mantles. They played with the Mantle kids. They were over at his house, swimming in his pool and playing with his sons. And so we've got Yankees and Mickey Mantle memorabilia signed. A lot of people in our family do. We've got bats and hats and shirts and jerseys. And I got a baseball when I was in 7th grade for Christmas. My uncle gave it to me. When Mickey Mantle was still alive and he'd come into Dallas every once in a while, my uncle would go out to dinner with him. And I never got the chance to meet him. I was supposed to at a wedding, but he got called to a meeting in New York, and so I didn't get to meet him, but I got to meet a lot of his sons. And got this baseball for Christmas, and every once in a while, when my wife and I when we're in a financial crunch, my wife will say to me, hey, why don't we sell the baseball? To which, guys, I'm sure you can imagine my response. Are you crazy? There's no chance we're selling that baseball. It's worth something to me. That's why it, stays in the safe and we never look at it. But it's worth something. A lot more than money. It's the value of having a baseball that's signed by Mickey Mantle. But every once in a while, when we were in a crunch, I went online to see how much I could get for this baseball. But in the process, I realized I don't have a certificate of authenticity, which you have to have in order to sell a baseball that's been signed by a professional athlete and to get any money for it. Because my baseball had been given to me through family, like because we knew him. I didn't buy it, and so I didn't get that certificate. So if I was going to sell this baseball, I'd have to go get it authenticated. And here's the process that you have to go through to get an autograph authenticated. And I have to read this because this is so intense. I couldn't remember this, and some of this I don't even know what it means. But it involves a machine that's called a video spectral comparator, okay, or a VSC. And a VSC is a powerful workstation designed to examine questionable documents and autographs using sophisticated color and infrared imaging, magnification, coaxial lighting, and side lighting on screen. The VSC detects erasures, it reveals masked and obliterated signatures, differences in ink types, and other extraordinary tampering. So basically, the VSC is testing to see if the signature is a fake, if it's a fraud. It's testing to see if it's the real deal, like if it's genuine or if it's worthless. And there's a big difference. That baseball is worth the price of a baseball you could go buy at any sports store if it's not the real deal, if it's fake. But if it's the real thing, it's worth thousands, and I don't even know how much it is worth today. I haven't looked in a long time. But James does pretty much the exact same thing here in verse 26 and 27. He gives us some tests to kind of see if we're the real deal, to see if we're fake, to see if we're just going through the routine. 3 things. I want to walk through these things with you. The first thing, James says, can show that we've got a fake, worthless religion is that we go to church, but we don't control our tongue. We go to church, but we don't control our tongue. And one of the ways this can be true in your life, and it has been in mine, is if you cuss a lot. Like when I was in middle school and the first part of high school, I was actively involved in my church and youth ministry and did all that kind of stuff, but I cussed like a sailor. I cussed all the time. I had a dirty mouth. Went to church all the time, but I cussed all the time. Middle school, the first part of high school. But when I was a junior in high school and I really started walking with Jesus, I was growing spiritually, and I hope you get that there's a difference there. Like there's a difference in just going to church and really walking with Jesus and growing spiritually. There's a big difference there. I started walking with Jesus, started growing spiritually, and so I stopped cussing. Now, my problem was I had a bad example. My youth minister, when I was growing up, when I was in middle school, my youth minister was giving announcements one day in the worship services, and instead of saying the sign-up sheets are in the back, you can imagine what he said. He said the sign-up stuff is in the back, and the whole church lost it. Like they were laughing hysterically. And I'm sure you can imagine if Chris or me, one of our pastors is up here and cussed and said that word, and the church just lost it. They were laughing hysterically. He was trying to get it back under control, trying to finish the announcements, but no one could stop laughing, so he just dropped the mic and just walked off the stage, and people just kept laughing and laughing and laughing. And so I like to give him a hard time and tell him that the reason that I had a bad mouth is because his fault. No, it was my fault. I wasn't controlling my tongue. Another way that we don't control our tongue is when we gossip. Now, one of our staff members was looking through my notes for this weekend and was joking with me saying, well, it's not gossip if it's true, right? And some of you may have heard that before, like, it's not gossip if it's true. Yeah, I'm not sure it works like that. Romans 1:29 says this: their lives became full of every kind of wickedness and sin, greed, hate, envy, murder, quarreling, deception, malicious behavior, and gossip. It says that gossip is wicked and sinful. When we talk about other people behind their back in a negative way, we gossip and we slander, we tear them down, or we spread stories about people. We get into other people's business and we talk about them. The Bible says that's wicked and sinful. It's gossip. We're not controlling our tongue. And James says the first way that we can be fake is when we don't control our tongue. Number 2, James says we can be fake when we go to church, but we don't help those in need. We don't help those in need. In fact, in Matthew 25, Jesus shares this scene, this picture of what it's going to be like when we're all standing before him one day. And Jesus says there's going to be this massive crowd that nobody can count that will be standing before him, and he's going to be separating them into two different groups. He's going to separate them into sheep and the goats. And the sheep are those that followed him. The goats are those that did not follow him, those that rejected Jesus. And Jesus says in Matthew 25, when he separates the two, the way that he is going to know the sheep from the goats is by the way the sheep served and helped those in need. By the way they took care of the sick, the poor, those who were in prison, the widows, the orphans, those who were in need. Jesus says, I'll know the sheep by the way they served others, by the way they met needs in my name. Almost like it's in the DNA of who we are as followers of Jesus, to take care of those in need, to help those who are struggling, to help the orphan, the poor, the widow, those who are in distress. It's just who we are. We're not saved by doing that. That's not what Jesus was saying. No, what he was saying was that's so much a part of who we are, that those who live like that show to be followers, genuine followers of Jesus. A great opportunity to be a doer of the word and to live this out is to join a Lifehouse. Our Lifehouses every semester are serving our local mission partners, the schools that we've adopted, other local ministries, other different areas of our cities that we're in. Great way to be obedient to that, to be a doer, join a Lifehouse and be on mission with other people, with other believers, with other followers of Jesus. Another great way to do this, to live this out, to be obedient to this, is to show up next weekend for Servolution. I totally realize that because we're not doing the traditional, worship services next weekend, like anything we do here is traditional, but you know what I mean, the normal routine services next weekend, it would be easy to take that off. Like think, I can miss that weekend. It's a weekend I can take off or be out of town or skip or, whatever. So I want to challenge you to be here next weekend for Servolution. And if you haven't signed up for a project yet, again, just stop by the table on your way out or show up at one of our campuses and we will get you plugged in to a project. But I want you to check out this testimony of an E-Lifer who got plugged in with one of our foreign mission partners that we served last year during Servolution. Check it out.
So I worked about 10 years, didn't go to church very much. Anyway, so I got involved with going to Church Experience Life and helped out with set up, tear down, and doing that. And I just had a call on that, needed to do something outside the church. So I went on the church website and I saw there's a good list of places that you can get involved with. And I read about the Bridge of Lubbock, what they do here of mentoring the kids and helping them with homework and things of that nature.
Well, Experience Life has been great. One of the things that really sticks out in my head is the amount of volunteers that we have here that are from Experience Life. People that just come in that have heard about us from Experience Life and want to help out in any way they can. Other than that, y'all have done great, huge things for us. The one thing I can really think of is our Christmas party last year, which y'all sponsored for our students, which was a huge blessing. Your youth volunteers came in, completely transformed our gym, provided the food for our students, provided presents for their families, and it was really a huge blessing.
So I didn't know the bridge existed, and that's probably about when I think they've been here around 10 years. And so if I hadn't seen it on the website and heard others, members of the church talking about it or things that they've done out there, I never would have known about it.
I just want to thank everyone at Experience Life who's come out and who's served in the past or in the present, and I just want to welcome anyone who wants to come and serve in the future to look at our website, look at the opportunities we have coming up, or just give us a call and come out.
Would you guys give Eric a hand? Just getting plugged in with one of our local mission partners, helping out. Just so proud of him and taking that next step. Definitely challenge you to be here next weekend for Servolution. Get plugged in, help those in need. Don't take that weekend off. Also want you to know, just like James was saying in verse 27, he said, pure and genuine religion is to take care of orphans. And part of our vision at Experience Life is to help take care of orphans. Adam and Jackie Reinhardt go to Experience Life, and they're fostering a child right now. like many other families here at Experience Life. Chris Baggett, our Amarillo campus pastor, and his wife, Christy, are in the process of adoption. My wife and I are planning to adopt. Many of our staff members are planning to adopt a child. And our challenge to you is to consider and pray about doing the same thing, to help take care of orphans. Our hope, our prayer is that Experience Life could be a part of helping every orphan in our region find a family. Wouldn't that be amazing? If every orphan in our region could find a family, that's our heart, that's our prayer. And we believe that we can be a part of that in Lubbock, Amarillo, and West Texas, seeing our region be rid of orphans. So the second way we tend to be fake, James says, is when we go to church, but we don't help those in need. Third, last, James says, when you go to church, but you are corrupted by the world, you can have a fake and worthless religion. When you go to church, but you're corrupted by the world. And I've got 5 questions for you, for all of us, for myself too. I've been looking at these this week. 5 questions for you, just to kind of test and see if there's any corruption from the world that's kind of snuck into your life. Let's see how you do. Number 1, do you engage in any form of sexual immorality? Do you engage in any form of sexual immorality? Sexual immorality being the receiving of sexual gratification from anything or anyone other than your spouse. Anything or anyone other than your spouse. Do you engage in any form of sexual immorality? If so, it's a sign that there's some corruption from the world in your life. Number 2, do you think the money that you have belongs to you to do with as you choose? Like to do with whatever you feel like. It belongs to you and you can do with it whatever you want. If so, that's a sign that there's probably some corruption from the world in your life. If you think all the money you have, it's yours and you can do whatever you want with it. Number 3, do you work all the time and rarely see your family? Do you work all the time and rarely see your family? If so, it's a sign that there could be some corruption from the world in your life. Number 4, do you think it's okay to get divorced when you're not happy in your marriage? Do you think it's okay to get divorced when you're not happy in your marriage? And I'm not talking about the only biblical reason for getting divorced when there's an adulterous affair. Jesus says that's the only exception. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying when you're just not happy in your marriage, like when it's just not doing it for you anymore. Do you think it's okay to get divorced? If so, it's a sign that there's some corruption from the world that's snuck into your life. And then 5th, last, are you pursuing the American dream rather than the Jesus mission? Like, are you pursuing money and status, material things, wealth, rather than pursuing the Jesus mission, becoming a disciple that makes disciples? If so, if you're more focused on the American dream than the Jesus mission, it's a sign that some corruption from the world has snuck into your life. And James says when we let the world corrupt us, it shows that the religion we have is fake. It may not be the real deal. And going to church once every week isn't fixing that. It's not masking that. It's not taking care of that. No, God's telling us to be doers of the word. And as we've been saying here in James chapter 1, when we look into the mirror of God's word and we see something that's broken in our life, we're asking God to help us fix it, to help us change it, because pure and genuine religion that James is talking about here is having a life-changing relationship with Jesus where he changes your desires, like what you care about begins to be what Jesus cares about. The things that you do are the things that Jesus did. The things that you think about and talk about were the things that Jesus thought about and talked about. That's what it looks like to have a pure and genuine religion. It's not going through the religious routine, just attending church once a week, listening and watching, but not obeying God's word. See, because some reason being a Christian in America today has become someone that just goes to church, follows some rules, and doesn't have any fun. And Jesus said in Matthew 6, he was talking to the Pharisees, and he was calling them often. You're just fake. You're just religious. It's just worthless. You know a lot, but you don't know Jesus. You don't have a life-changing relationship with Jesus. And so he called the Pharisees hypocrites. And we get that word hypocrites from the Greek word hypocrites, which was a Greek actor who wore a mask. And the term began to take on the idea of pretending to be something that you're not. And so Jesus would look at the Pharisees and say, listen, you're pretending to be something that you're not. You're just wearing a mask. All you're doing is learning and knowing, but you don't have a life-changing relationship with Jesus. So he said, you're just wearing a mask. You're pretending to be something you're not. And James is saying the same thing can be true for us today. Like if you're just going through the religious routine, just meeting for services where you just listen and watch, but it doesn't ever affect your life, and you don't ever take next steps. Like you're not living out the Jesus mission to be a disciple and make disciples. You're not taking next steps. You're not looking more and more like Jesus. James is saying you might be pretending to be something that you're not. Like you might be just wearing a mask once a week when you go to church. So here's the big idea today. Big idea, thought, theme. Don't fool yourself. Religious activity doesn't make you right with God. Don't fool yourself. Religious activity doesn't make you right with God. I hope you hear from last week, the verses last week and this week, James pleading with you, with me. Don't be deceived. James said last week, don't be deceived into thinking that you're growing spiritually just because you listen and watch and you don't do. This week he's saying, don't fool yourself. Just because you're going through the religious routine, just like the Israelites were in Isaiah 1, just because you're going through the ritual of coming week in and week out, that doesn't make you right with God. James is pleading with us, don't be deceived. Don't be deceived into thinking that you're right with God just because you come to church every week. Don't be deceived to thinking that you're growing spiritually just because you are learning more. So here's the challenge for today. Take your next step. Look in the next steps process that we have here at Experience Live and figure out what that next step for you is and take that action step to be a doer of the word and not just a hearer of the word. Take that next step. Show up next week for Servolution. Don't take the weekend off. Show up next week and join with us as we seek to be a blessing to the city in Jesus' name, to help those in need, help our local mission partners. Don't take the weekend off. But if you're here and you've never committed your life to Jesus, I want you to know some of the things we've been talking about are for those like James says, if you claim to be a follower of Jesus. That's who we've been talking to and that's who we've been challenging, those who claim to be followers of Jesus. But if you're here and you've never committed your life to Christ, I want you to know that just doing good things isn't going to make you right with God. Like being a good person, your good outweighing your bad, it isn't going to make you right with God. The Bible says in Ephesians 2, verse 8 and 9, that God saved you by his grace when you believed. And you can't take credit for this. It is a gift from God. Salvation is not a reward for the good things we have done, so none of us can boast about it. You know, one of the most important truths that you could grasp from the Bible is this idea that salvation is not a reward for the good things that we've done. You know, Romans 3:23 says that we've all sinned. Every one of us, we've all sinned. And because of our sin, it says we've fallen short of God's standard to have a relationship with him and to go to heaven when we die. And not only that, verse 24, Romans 3 says that there's a penalty for sin. Like there's a fine to be paid for our sin. The Bible says it's eternity separated from God in hell. So we've fallen short because of our sin. We've fallen short of God's standard. There's a penalty for sin. There's a fine to be paid for sin. But the Bible says in verse 8 in Ephesians 2 that we just read, but God saved you by his grace when you believed. See, it's not about being a good enough person. It's not going to be your good deeds outweighing your bad deeds when you stand before God, and maybe somehow he'll let you in because you were just good enough. The Bible says you're saved by God's grace when you believe. It's not when you were baptized. It's not when you've been to church enough times. It's not because you're from a Christian family or you went to a Christian school or whatever. It's not when you've been good enough. The Bible says it's when you believe. When you believe that Jesus died for you, died for your sin, and through his death took the penalty for your sin, paid the fine for your sin. It's when you believe that you're not good enough to go to heaven. You know, we say all the time here at Experience Life, good people don't go to heaven, forgiven people do. So when you believe that you're not good enough, when you believe that Jesus died for you, and you turn from your sin and you commit your life to Jesus, the Bible says you will be saved. Saved by God's grace when you believe. And when you make that decision, the Bible says your sin is totally forgiven. It's totally wiped out. You're made right with God. And when you die, you can know for sure you're going to heaven when you commit your life to Christ. And for some of you at all of our campuses, I think that's your decision today. You've never committed your life to Jesus, and today is the day, now's the time to commit your life to Christ. And if that's your decision, I want to challenge you at every one of our campuses to look at that bulletin that you received when you came in, and at the bottom there's a card called the connection card. And on the back there's a box that says, I'm committing my life to Christ. I want to challenge you to fill out that card, check that box. Tear it off, take it back to the Next Step Center in the foyer of your campus, and we've got a free gift for you, a new Bible to help you in your new relationship with Jesus. We want to pray with you and celebrate that decision with you. So if that's you, you're committing your life to Christ at any one of our campuses right now, fill out that card, check that box that you're committing your life to Christ, and take it back to the Next Step Center. Let's pray and just ask God to help us have a pure, real, life-changing relationship with Jesus. God, we thank you for your word, God, in James 1. God, I thank you for this series. And God, I pray that as we've looked into your word, that's a mirror, God, that you would begin to fix the things that are broken in our lives. God, I pray that as we read today, that you would convict us of where we might be fake, where we might just be pretending to be something that we're not. God, where we're wearing a mask. And God, I pray that no one at any of our campuses right now would be deceived, that they wouldn't fool themselves into thinking there's something that they're not. God, I pray that we would be the real deal, pure and genuine followers of Jesus. God, would you help us to control our tongue, to help those that are in need? And God, would you help us to fight corruption from the world that sneaks into our life? God, I pray that if there's anyone at any one of our campuses right now who has never committed their life to Jesus, would you speak to them right now? Draw them to yourself, reveal yourself to them. And God, I pray that right now they would decide to commit their life to Jesus. They would quit making excuses. They would quit rejecting what you've done for them. They would turn from their sin and commit their life to Jesus. God, I pray next week for Servolution. God, that we would see thousands of people come out across West Texas and serve and bless our cities in Jesus' name. And God, we pray that our cities would be blessed next weekend as we serve. God, thank you for today. Thank you for your word. God, as we worship now at all of our campuses, God, would you move in our hearts? In Jesus' name, amen.
Thanks for checking out one of our messages today. If you made a decision to commit your life to Christ, I'd love to know about it. You can email me at chris@experiencelifenow.com. Also, if you're interested in taking a next step, check out our website at experiencelifenow.com and click on Next Steps. Let us know if we can ever serve you in any way, and we look forward to seeing you soon.